Well, spring has sprung as it feels like we're entering the dog days of school, the dog days of camp, but it's Masters Week, facing burnout in the middle of camp and all these things. But we're bringing you another show. So, welcome back into another edition of Kolby's Corner, coming to here live from the great town of Blacksburg, Virginia, on Tuesday, April 7th, year of our Lord 2026. The media was able to see practice number 9. Yes, number 9 out of 15 this spring. It's flying by. But yeah, Virginia Tech was back out there on the practice field. So we'll talk through some observations of what we saw in a smaller practice viewing window, but we're starting to see some more themes start to emerge. Virginia Tech's been really hot on the recruiting trail. If you're following over on vtscoop.com or on X right there at Kolby_Crawford, they've been on a mean streak on the recruiting trail. We'll talk some of that as well with Brock Frisby, the latest Virginia Tech Hokie commit, will join the show at the top of the hour, close to 8 o'clock. So make sure to jump in the live chat, drop any comments or questions you have for him. We'll make sure to touch on all those. And then we'll also be answering some fan questions, as we just said. Some submitted from vtscoop.com and a lot submitted by you guys that jump in and answer in the comment section. So sit back, enjoy, like, comment, helps me out a ton. Yeah, before we start, I do have to say thank you. It's obligatory at this point. The support on the show has been immense. Walking around Blacksburg today, I met a couple of people that watch the show, and it's just always really awesome. So I really appreciate all the support. It truly does mean the world. Hopefully still producing a great product, and the feedback is also always good. So if you have a comment, question on what you want to see more of, less of on the show, drop a question. But also, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, if you're watching live here or on YouTube, that scroll bar there at the bottom, 60% off annual VIP membership at vtscoop.com. Obviously wrapped in with that, Paramount Plus, all the things, every single team site across FBS college football, all the insider intel. Today, the basketball transfer portal open. You can get all the latest scoop and intel over there on vtscoop.com or 24/7 Sports for your favorite team site. But if you use code Kolby, 60% off, Paramount Plus, all the deals going on over there. So make sure to check that out. And if you get it for the year, it goes all the way through next year. Transfer portal season and all. Code Kolby, 60% off. We'll hop off the soapbox, though. But moving right along, saw Virginia Tech spring practice number 9 this morning, Tuesday, April 7th. It's always funny how it shakes out that the weekends are really, really beautiful here. Probably get up into the mid-70s, and then by the start of the week, I think this morning I was walking in, and it was 39 degrees. But that's besides the point. The indoor facility was not that cold. But I think, again, the largest topic of discussion here stems at that quarterback position. All eyes are on the quarterbacks. Transfer from Penn State, Ethan Grunkmeyer still leading drills, still looking really good, looking fluid, looking comfortable in the offense, looking really comfortable with a lot of his pass catchers. You see him hooking up with Luke Reynolds, a transfer tight end, Tyseer Denmark, Jeff Exnor Jr., a couple of names that stand out. Behind him was UNC transfer Bryce Baker, which is how it's been. But behind them was a true freshman, Troy Hune, taking third-team reps, true freshman from California, really highly touted guy. You know, if you've been watching on the YouTube channel, you heard about, you know, how dynamic, how explosive his first scrimmage performance sounds like it was. So he kind of stepped up there ahead of Keldon Ryan, taking third-team reps. But like we've been echoing on the show, there's a lot of competition, and just even being around and following the program now, the depth of the quarterback position is not in a place that it's been at Virginia Tech for quite a while. So that room is in a much better place, just completely overall. But I think Ethan Grunkmeyer is still that guy. Definitely the odds-on favorite to win the job moving forward in camp. Looks assertive. Put a couple nice balls out there. Now, like I said, we're not watching any live team periods, but in individual drills, making the most of every rep. And same with Bryce Baker. He brings a different element. I'll be interested to see as they get closer into fall camp, do they shave out packages or a role for him? And when you look at it, I know, posted the clips here. We'll play a little bit here of the true freshman, Troy Hune, here at practice today. His frame, I mean, he is every bit of 6'4", 6'4.5", maybe 6'5". He towers over a lot of guys there on a little backdoor screen to Harrison, connecting up over the middle on time. And then he let a couple deep balls go here to, I believe, Luke Reynolds and Harrison St. Germain that were on perfect time. So it was just a really, really impressive day by him again. Like I said, we're not seeing team periods, but for him to come in and for all the mid-year enrollee guys, I feel like I beat a dead horse. But these are guys, are preparing for prom, right? It's their last semester of their senior year, and they're on campus going up against, some guys on this team, Montavious Cunningham, Kamari Copeland, in their 7th year of college football. So I think it's just really impressive to see that kind of poise and sustain it for multiple practices. So overall, I would say the quarterback competition's in a really good shape, but I would fully anticipate Ethan Grunkemeyer to win the job and take the reins moving forward. Here's a couple clips of him going through here. Quick release, working on that. Also over the middle there. Left this one a little high, the one I caught on camera, and then had a couple really nicely timed deep balls, and just the ability for honestly all the quarterbacks to be able to hit guys in stride consistently. It's been really impressive. There's been a lot of questions about what the offense will look like, and I think post practice, James Franklin was very complimentary of Ty Howell, and also just overall how hands on James Franklin has been with the offense. He says it's the most hands on he's been with the offense since his first couple years at Vanderbilt. Obviously, he was an offensive coordinator at Maryland. Those are his roots. But, at Penn State, hired a couple guys that were gurus in their own right, maybe took a back seat, and he's so comfortable with Ty. I mean, when you see him at practice, he's with the quarterbacks. He's coaching them up. There was one moment there with Tyseer Denmark on his release that he was very intentional and got on Denmark on how to do it and coaching him up. And I think a really accessible, easy way to understand, but also being very involved in every single rep and maximizing that. And I think a lot of his ability to be able to be so focused on the offense is his comfortability with Brent Pry. Brent Pry was over there. Now, he was not a walk-around coordinator. He also made sure to make that a really big point in the postgame that we don't have walk-around floating coordinators. Pry was very hands-on with the linebackers, but, they feel enough comfort with even their assistant position coaches that they have to go get a look at different position groups. As well with Pry, he was super complimentary of Ty Howell. He was arguably the best tight end coach in the country, which, I think you could definitely make a real argument with that. I always think it's so funny when you look on the recruiting trail. There's a couple guys that he probably waits to offer to, because once he offers a tight end, you see Alabama, all these other schools start to jump in. So I think that's pretty comical, but was pretty complimentary of that offense. And I think it's an offense that, they're going to outside zone. They're going to work that in. They're going to run the football, work off of that as well. But they're definitely going to push the ball down the field. Next, that ties into the offensive line. Got a couple thoughts here. I'm going to try and lay them out here pretty clearly. First off, Johnny Garrett was back out there. I know he was a little banged up last week, was not available, was working in there at backup right tackle. So the first team offensive line that we saw when we were out there for one grouping at left tackle was the West Virginia transfer Lucas Austin, left guard Laith Ganem, center Kyle Altuner, right guard was Brody Meadows, also working back off injury. And then at right tackle was Montavious Cunningham. So that was the grouping for first team. You saw Johnny Garrett rotating in there at backup right tackle, as well with Aiden Lynch working in there at tackle. Justin Bell, heard some nice things about. And I think it's such a big inflection point for where Virginia Tech was a year ago. Doug Bowman always brings this up over on the message board, but if you've been following Virginia Tech for a little while, it was pretty eerie and maybe a shot across the bow to reset expectations for last year when Matt Moore came out and probably didn't have the most positive or assuring remarks about his offensive line group right before the season last year. And you kind of saw how that unplayed. Remack got a little banged up. Cunningham got banged up. Meadows got banged up. And it got bleak pretty quickly in that room. So for him to come out today and say pretty much unprompted that he felt like he had 10 offensive linemen he could play, Matt Moore kind of doubled down and said he feels like they have 10 guys right now that are playable. Now, a lot of those guys don't have a ton of game reps. Michael Troutman's in that mix. He hasn't seen that many snaps. Justin Terry is in that mix. I think he's played 120 snaps at Ohio State. So they feel like they're playable, but I think you laid it out really nicely where he said there's a ton of talent, just not a lot of proven talent. But overall, I think the offensive line and the quarterback room, for that matter, are both in a much better place than a year ago. He also went on, I guess, a different side tangent in a way about, everyone was making this notion that even I, we talked about it quite a bit on this show that, the offensive line last year was a lot better run blocking than pass blocking. And he said, that's probably true, but there's a lot of factors that go into it. Last year with Kyron Drones, we had a quarterback that was a better runner than a thrower. He came out and said that very clearly and said, okay, now we have Grunkemeyer, who realistically is probably a better thrower than a runner. We are getting the ball out quicker. We are running routes with guys closer to the ball. So it's making them look better at pass pro. So it's kind of how do you read through all that noise and really evaluate your group. But I thought that was really interesting for him to say that, as well with his, his ability. He emphasized a couple times the quarterback sliding up in the pocket. Something that probably Kyron Drones wasn't the strongest at was stepping up into the pocket when pressure came and keeping his eyes downfield, kind of just bailed out, rolled out, and avoided trying to extend the play. So you saw that even early in some of the live periods we saw. Gronk, Baker, Hune, even Keldon Ryan, all four of those guys showing great pocket mobility and just awareness, good feel, something that has not been probably on display for Virginia Tech recently. So to see that, those guys stepping up in the pocket, and something that Matt Moore highlighted from a year ago that they've seen on tape, definitely something to keep note of there. Sticking on the offense, I would say Jeff Overton at running back, just physically. Like when you look at him from a year ago to now, his skill, his speed, his talent. Just like physically, when you look at him, what a freak. Him, and I wrote it down in my notes just briefly before he went going, both 16s. I think Noah Chambers and Jeff Overton are two guys where height, weight, speed, body typing, you're like, yep, that's got to be one of the best players on the team just because they look really great. And, I think Jeff's probably in line to be that starting back. I know Marcellus Hawkins is a little dinged up, but I mean, him and Noah Chambers probably in line to be that starting middle linebacker. Also having a really nice camp. Brent probably really hands-on over there, but I think Noah Chambers has taken a nice step. Last year, you don't always want to have to throw those true freshman guys to the fire, but sometimes it can be so valuable because shout out Captain Rex from the Clone Wars. In my experience, or in my time, experience outranks everything. And I think that, Matt Moore, a lot of coaches echoed that today, that it really does. You can only learn so much in the meeting room and on the Merriman practice field that you kind of have to go do it under the big lights. And you're going to take your licks. You're going to get beat up. But it really is the most valuable teaching moment. So that was something. Sticking on the offensive line, Logan Howland. This was one that, we talked about on this show when, we kind of found out about his injury with the labrum there. And we're talking about that timeline potential. Sounded like he was going to miss all of spring. And then in the last couple of weeks, talking to some people within the program, doesn't sound like they're overly concerned with the long-term timeline. He was on the side working with Jarrett Ferguson, trying to rehab, work his way back. So he was going through agility drills and individual. And then a couple other guys that were notable, the tight end position, Benji Gosnell, he was in orange. So I'm not sure if he was full go, but he definitely was limited. So Benji was in orange as well with Matt Henderson, the Penn State transfer from Powhatan High School, Virginia, was also banged up. Looked like he got a little tweak or something, wasn't going through all the drills. So those were a couple guys that were back. Justin Terry, we talked about on the offensive line. He was in and out. And honestly, he looked, I don't know if it was just in a week, but he looked a lot better with the pads on, was moving well, which was something I was watching for because he's just a freak if he could put it all together. I think his ceiling at tackle is one that obviously Matt Moore was very, dying to get him to Virginia Tech, recruit him to West Virginia. Then Ohio State kind of pulled him away last cycle and now was eventually able to get him. But I think he's someone that's going to factor in the fall if he's healthy. And as well as safety, Quentin Reddish was back, not in the orange jersey anymore, back full go. And, based on all reports, he has pretty much outright taken that number one safety spot, as you've seen for the last couple of years, had that, taking back field goal against Clemson, the interception last year, dynamic playmaker. But, last year was all hurt. And then there was a ton of noise that came with that. So just trying to put together a good camp. Also, a couple guys, sticking with that at the safety position that it was interesting that Franklin highlighted. Also kind of in the same way that Pry highlighted his last media availability. Not like backhanded, but like we're surprised. And guys we didn't think we were going to get that much out of who've had really nice camps. Pry first brought up Cam Chadwick from UConn. And today, James Franklin highlighted Asen Stevens and Tyson Flowers at safety. So Asen Stevens working at the edge, working with first team, probably in that first team grouping for defensive end pass rushers right now. He has a lunch pail. And looking at him, I honestly didn't know he'd gotten up to like 260, 265. And he looks physically great. And it was something that Franklin highlighted where he was like, not only as a man, but as a football player, you kind of have to know who you are. And he felt like last year, maybe with Cephas going to a 3-down man front, probably didn't fit his play style as well. And he was trying to be this finesse type pass rusher. And he was like, no, you just got to go be a power workhorse and go get after the quarterback. So he has a lunch pail, gives some really nice insight. If you want to check that out on the YouTube channel, I had a brief interview with him there. But yeah, sticking at the linebacker spot, I know we talked about some of those groupings and guys being back, but I think Spencer at star or Sam, whatever they're going to call it, Chambers at Mike or middle linebacker, and then Keon Wiley at will. They keep, every time we kind of probe them about the linebacker position, Keon Wiley isn't really brought up. but neither is Curtis Jones. And Curtis Jones sometimes goes through with the ones, but then they always kind of push back on that. Like, yeah, he'll be in there potentially at star. So I think that's interesting. They had Gabe Williams working on the inside. He looks great. I mean, he's probably 230, 235. Looks like he's moving really well, which is just an incredible story there. So I think the linebacker spot, they have a lot of depth, just guys who haven't put it all together yet. Like Gabe, you've seen it in spurts, and then he got hurt. And then behind those guys, you have some more experience in Antoine Santiago and Curtis Jones Jr., ton of names to remember here. But still definitely trying to piece all that together. But I would say, especially with the linebackers, it's the most – and I think it's just, a little foreign to me in saying because Brent Pry for the last couple of years at spring practice has been the head coach, right? And he's been in that role of walking around, checking all the position groups. Yeah, he probably favored the defense, but he was always going from station to station to station. He is hands-on with the linebackers, coaching after every rep. And maybe, at Penn State or wherever, that's normal. It just looks so unfamiliar or foreign when you've gotten used to the cadence of the last couple of years. So every coach is coaching their butt off. You talk about Anthony Midget, Vic Hall with the nickels. We'll get into that a little bit, but man, I feel like it is just a completely different vibe when you go through indie workouts or indie parts of practice and you just see what's going on. So those are some things I'm noticing. We talked about Vic Hall at nickel. A couple of these assignments, I know they're cross-training guys, but seeing Sherrod Koval, who played nickel at Clemson there for a little bit, the former Oscar Smith standout. I know he came in as a safety, but seeing him work at nickel was very interesting. As well there at nickel, I think probably the starting guy there would be Isaiah Brown-Murray with Kenny Woosley Jr. They're really high on from Penn State. All three of those guys were working there. And then interestingly enough, a guy who was at nickel and corner a year ago, Knowledge Harrell from down there at Green Run High School in Virginia Beach, was working at safety. So this was something that you talked about, had a lot of safety tape coming out of high school. There's this one clip that I always think of. I forget who was against, but had an incredible chase down, just an incredible strain play. Like that's what you put on and teach tape about. So he was working at safety. A couple other notes that we'll work through here, just miscellaneous things. Sam Okunlola, the Colorado transfer, I know we've had a lot of questions about him and I haven't been able to answer a ton. I think he's going to factor heavily into that rotation. He is limited though. So he was wearing the orange jersey out there today. You can see that over on the photo gallery over on vtscoop.com, but he was working, leading some lines, but he was in sweatpants. So he wasn't full go during the team periods, but I would expect him, Derek Dandy, Jason Abbey, Asen Stevens, Javian Hilson to factor in there. I think he's someone who's a little bit of a more refined product, someone of you kind of know more of what you're going to get there, as opposed to, I think Javian Hilson is someone that in talking to different people is so raw and has such a high ceiling, maybe even with the Cortez Harris, but you have to be gap sound and hold the edge, and that you have to do all the little things as well. So that might be something to keep an eye on. Some other notes. We talked about Meadows being first-team right guard, Lucas Austin working in at left tackle. At wide receiver, Brody Adams and Chance Wiggins, two of those guys from the class of 24. Yes, class of 2024, highly rated wide receivers from the state of Virginia. They've dealt with their fair share of injuries. They've obviously had quite a bit of injury struggles while they've been at Virginia Tech. But they were both out there. It's just when you haven't run in a while, you see them working back. I saw Keelan have a couple really nice reps, put his foot in the ground, and get running. It's just you kind of have to build it back. When you haven't run, just get back in the feel of things. Chan still looked like he was, almost not babying it or worried to mess up. But when you're working back, it can almost tie up your feet when you're thinking so much to catch the ball. So we'll see, because that wide receiver rotation is really mixed up. I know we have a question about that later that we'll get into about some of what Franklin said. But yeah, last note on practice, Tim Sands was there, which was of note. Whit Babcock, Danny White, a couple of those people, obviously ushering some people around upcoming Board of Visitors meeting and such. But those are just some side notes. Oh, also as well, with the quarterback, I wanted to get into it. Warren Ruggiero, I don't know if he can be undersold, his addition to the staff. And I think that's why they're keeping a lot of these people they have on the staff. They feel like they've built out a really, really incredible support staff. And I think that's why they're trying to keep some of these guys under the radar, because, obviously his pedigree of being the offensive coordinator at Wake Forest and so many other places, just his history. But I think he's really gone under the radar with what he's been able to do being in that quarterback room with Danny O'Brien, of course, and Ty Howell. But having fingerprints of him in there, I think that can't be undersold. When you're talking about sliding up in the pocket and all those little things, he is a great quarterback developer, and he's seen a lot. But yeah, I think the O-line will have a better presence overall. And yeah, I think those are the largest notes from practice. So that was practice number 9. They'll have a scrimmage this weekend and then practice next week in the spring game. It's crazy how it's all coming together. But if you're just joining, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video. Expecting Brock Frisbee to join here in a couple minutes. Latest Virginia Tech commit, Brock Frisbee from up there in Maryland. So we're looking to have him join here semi-soon. But before that, obviously Virginia Tech this last weekend, Easter weekend, they pushed their schedule up a little bit. They had a scrimmage on Friday, and man, they hosted a whole ton of elite prospects on campus. And just overall, if you've been watching the show, if you've been covering VTScoop.com, if you've been following along with any of the work I've done, I feel like for the last 4 years, you can kind of understand the echelon of where Virginia Tech has been recruiting and where they've operated at. And just even in Franklin's short couple months, and now, but just the type of talent that they've been able to gain traction with and get to campus on a consistent weekly basis in the spring, it is really impressive. And to stark contrast to what it's been, you knew the level of what he could do with his ties at Penn State, but just seeing it come to fruition at Virginia Tech, it's been really impressive. So, some of the names that were here, you talk about Noah Glover, the number 3 player in the state, number 2 player in the state. I think he's still probably leaned to Georgia. I know Miami's definitely in the mix, but to get him on campus is big. Smart Hudson, offensive tackle from down there in Chesapeake, Virginia, Western Branch. Caden Kraft, got a legacy connection, 2028, top 247 quarterback was there. The list just goes on and on and on. Ziggy Miller, safety prospect from there, Huguenot High School in Richmond, Virginia. A ton of really, really highly rated guys. And it sounds like overall some really nice reports. As we get into recruiting, I know we've been talking about it, but head over to vtscoop.com because in the next coming days, feel really, really good about a couple prospects, probably close to putting in crystal ball for a couple of those guys. But before we get into that, let's talk about a guy who has committed to Virginia Tech. Brock Frisbee here from Severn, Maryland, Archbishop Spalding. Brock, how we doing?
You're doing good. How about you, sir?
Doing well. First off, appreciate you joining. Why was Virginia Tech the school for you?
Man, for me, it was the people, man. It was a bond like no other. Ever since I first went up there in February, I believe, right before the deadline was about to happen, it was genuine. Spence, Franklin, Pry, all just good guys. I believe in their system. I believe the plan they have for me. And it just felt right for me. Perfect fit. So I'm all in.
You talk about that visit that you made, I believe it was right before the dead period or maybe even for a basketball game. And coming out of it, we talked. And you talked about Sean Spencer. You've heard about Coach Chaos and his recruiting chops, but what really stands out? Is it his scheme or just how personable he is?
Man, I would just say he's just so, like, his attention to detail is just like no coach I've ever seen from a defensive line aspect. Like, he doesn't allow his players to be complacent. He's alert. He's attentive to everything. I would say his style of coaching is a style that I'm not really used to, but I can see how it helps his players and how he can push his players in that aspect. So, yeah, I just felt like, I could connect to him. He's a great dude. That whole room, Coach Congo, Coach D, Will Werner, those are my guys, man. So, yeah.
So did you sat in the meeting room, right, when you went out?
I did.
When you talk to a lot of those guys in the defensive line room, some of them had familiarity with Spencer from being on the recruiting trail. A lot of them are just getting to know. How did the current players pitch kind of sell you too?
Yeah, man. It wasn't a lot of talk, really. They just said you just got to see it for yourself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you just got to see it up front. Just watch us work. That's what's going to sell you. You know what I mean? So it wasn't really, a lot coming out of their mouths about, like, what, the experience was like. But it was like, just see it for yourself, and you'll fall in love with it. So, yeah.
So you're seeing it now already with a lot of the hype, the recruitment or just the hype and the buzz around the recruitment with Virginia Tech since Franklin. Really his relationship, how did him coming here and pitching his overall vision kind of change your perspective on Virginia Tech?
Yeah, man, it's crazy, man. If you would have asked myself a year ago if I would be going to be committed to play for Coach Franklin now, I think you're just full of it, So it's crazy to be in that position. But yeah, sitting down with Franklin, just good dude, all about ball. His pitch to me was really just like, we're not about like the numbers and the NIL and all about that, but we want to develop you, right? We want to develop Brock. And I really just believed in that plan and believed everything he was saying to me. And yeah, felt good about it. Felt like I could really feel the family bond that they're trying to build there. So yeah.
Now you've been on a ton of visits, Syracuse, Nebraska, wherever. But what about Blacksburg, the town? You're going to be playing football and being developed, but just the overarching area. What stood out and was like, okay, this is the place I want to spend time?
Yeah, so it's not too crowded, which I liked. It's
Yeah.
not too crowded. Kind of a small football-based town, which I like. Football. That's gonna be what I'm spending majority of my time for. So not too many distractions out there. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of where I'm at now. I'm from Davisonville, so
Yeah.
yeah, it kind of reminded me of that. So yeah, it just felt like home, man. Perfect fit.
Now, do you know what you want to study when you get up there?
Yeah, I'm thinking somewhere in the sports broadcasting
Yeah.
field. So I
We
think
got to
it's
flip this interview around.
yeah. I think it's their major is sports analytics and data, something like that, I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, that field is where I'm looking to go.
That's awesome, man. So are you looking to get back up on campus for the spring game?
Yes, sir. I am.
So as you do that, kind of how does the hat you wear change a little bit where, you're the guy being recruited and now you're trying to change and recruit some other guys?
Yeah, for sure. I've been actually talking to, a couple other recruits, just trying to see where their head at is with this thing, trying to, give them come to VTech, check them out, see what they're about, because it really is a good place to be. Like they are building something at Virginia Tech. Like I can tell you that firsthand, sitting in those meetings, watching practice, they are building
Yeah.
something there. So yeah, definitely on the recruiting trail now. But yeah, I feel good about it, especially in the D line room. I feel like yeah, we should come up with a good class. Good class.
I already have a couple guys. Any names you want to check in on? We had one question from a member saying, how hard are you recruiting Miles McAfee? Scrap
Oh
McAfee,
yeah,
obviously a
man.
teammate there at Archbishop Spalding. Have you talked to him at all?
Yeah, my man Scrap. Yeah, he definitely likes VTech. I think he has a OV set up with them, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken. But yeah, man, definitely trying to get him. I think he was hurt last year, his junior year.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, one of the best receivers in the country, if not the best. Kid just works outrageously hard, just outworks everybody. He'd be a great get. So yeah, definitely recruiting him hard for sure.
When you talk to Sean Spencer, a lot of it is not just, hey, we want you, like, we'll do whatever it takes to get you. There's a lot of development, right? And even right now, what are some of those things when you go over and watch your film that he's talking to you about, like here, this and that, or kind of coaching you through and out even?
Yeah. So he actually said my game kind of reminds him of Kamari Copeland, who's up there now.
Oh,
So he said he really liked. I play the run well. I have a good strike, heavy hands. He said he likes my. I have good footwork, good twitch, good quickness, stuff like that. Things need to work on my pad level. Um, I'll say my first step and like having more motor, like in my pass rush. So things like that.
that's awesome, man. Well, before we get you out of here, I appreciate you taking the time, but a last message to Hokie Nation, brief introduction. What do you got to say?
Man, we coming, man. That's it. We coming. That's it right there. We coming strong.
Nice, Brock. Dude, thank you again for taking the time. We'll keep in touch, and we'll see you up here April 18th.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you.
Sounds good, man. Have a good night.
You too.
That was Brock Frisbee, 3-star defensive lineman from up there, Archbishop Spalding in Maryland. What an awesome guy. Like we said, has someone who visited there, and it was just overwhelmingly positive coming out of that visit. Their relationship with Sean Spencer, James Franklin, felt like it was, trending that way, certainly in his recruitment, but shuts it down early. And someone that I think they are very on board and excited to have starting off early in the class to kind of build around because, someone that a lot of people can rally behind. So that was awesome. If you're just joining, subscribe to the show, like the video. Going to go through some questions, and then we'll get out of here and have a great Tuesday evening. So we've got through recruiting. But yeah, over on vtscoop.com, we've been doing this thing. It's been really fun. Some feedback that we've gotten, kind of polling you guys. Any questions you have before we hop into the live chat? And some of those here we'll work through. We had Husky NC asking, how close are Troy Hune and Bryce Baker? Talking about the quarterback competition between Troy Hune and could he potentially push Bryce Baker? I think everything's open, right? Like everything is on the table. Troy Hune, just looking at it, it's insane that guy is 17 or 18 or whatever he is, 6'5". I mean, his frame looks, I know that he hasn't gone live and there will be a ton of stuff before he goes and face live bullets, but just looking at his frame, that's someone who could go play in a college football game. He throws the ball really well, has great timing. He's a competitor. I was talking with someone on the 24/7 evaluation team at Elite 11. He didn't have the best couple days. And then he comes out on the last day in the live 7-on-7. He starts lighting it up. So I think, when the lights are brightest, he's someone that really steps up. So we'll see a lot to play out there. I would give Bryce Baker the nod right now, but they've both had nice camps, to be honest. Here's one from Hokies 0616. You said Brody, talking about Keelan Adams, was looking healthier today, but he wasn't mentioned by James Franklin. Any cause for concern of getting buried, or is he just starting to make a bigger impact? I think it's a good question, but, if you also listen to Franklin's presser today or media availability, he also said, that's why he tries to avoid naming guys, right? Because you leave a name or two off, and he even said it himself, guys are going to get butthurt or in their feelings about it. So there's a ton of guys in that wide receiver room. When you look at the talent, Aiden Green, Takai Heath, Kershawn Brown, Keelan Adams, Chance Wiggins, Snook Peterkin, Denmark, Exenor, Sparks. Beyond that, and then Stewie's having a great camp. More than half, I would say 3/4 of the guys I just named were blue chip guys coming out of high school. It is extremely competitive. So a lot still up for grabs. He's working back. I think Keelan Adams, he's shown it in high school, right? He's got to put it together at the collegiate ranks. But yeah, still a long way to go in the wide receiver room. But I wouldn't say, frankly, not mentioning him in the media availability is a cause for concern. Got Husky and C asking again, how is tackling/toughness? I think this is something that James Franklin hyper emphasizes in his program. There's a lot of programs now that practice that you hear about through college football. It's short practices, don't tackle the ground, really easy. And then there's a couple that are really open, or you hear about in the space, that are hyper aggressive. And you look at them, Miami, one of the most physical programs that you hear about practicing. Look where they got. Alabama, I know you can point to it, but still, college football playoff and a win there, one of the most physical teams practicing. Notre Dame's also up there, and just, talking to different people. So I think he is trying to instill that toughness while also evolving, trying to keep guys fresh. But I think the defense has probably brought a little bit more strain overall, just in talking to some different people, or at least maybe lately they've had the upper hand. But I would say tackling is good. It's difficult in this time where you're trying to balance everything. It's a delicate balance for coaches to walk. So we'll see. Hopefully there's a good display there on April 18th. Jumping into a couple more questions. Appreciate Hustler43 threw that live question up there. It's the first time we've ever done that, when we had a recruit on live, a question from vtscoop.com. That was really awesome. So if you have them, make sure to drop them, because that was cool. One question here from TBD757. Shout out 757. How was Dante Dent Jr.'s visit the other week? I see he has an OV scheduled. Yep, Dante Dent Jr. from Chesapeake, Virginia. Actually was just talking to one of our, like I said, 24/7 scout talent evaluators about him, trying to figure out where he fits on the grade. I saw him live this summer. Yes, it was this summer, because Travis Johnson was there and Lonnie Andrews wasn't throwing. He had a really nice day going up against guys like Zay Cleveland, who's obviously wearing a Virginia, or will be wearing a Virginia Tech uniform this summer. He had a really nice day. Long stride, strong hands, pretty nice route tree. I think they have him slated for that last weekend. I don't think he's that high of a priority for Virginia Tech right now, but I think he's a fine player. Oscar Smith's the school that they want to keep an in at, but I don't know if he will end up at Virginia Tech. I do believe he has an official visit. A couple other schools in the mix, maybe Wake Forest and Cincinnati off the top of my head. But, yeah, that's one to keep an eye on loosely. I know I reported that he has the official visit, or right before he posted that graphic. But, yeah, good visit. Just we'll see how hard they push for him. Next up, Iron has a couple questions. Hopefully I'm prepared well enough to answer these. We had Iron, if you're from vtscoop.com. Make sure to drop any questions you have for future shows. But asking about the linebacker report. Feels bare. Feels like Randall will go bigger. which I probably agree with. I don't know if Virginia Tech's in the mix there. Throw us some names. I would say a couple names, and we'll see, because I think your assessment is relatively pretty good. You look at Jeremiah Culpepper, top 247 linebacker from LaGrange, Georgia. He has suitors from, Auburn, Texas, Alabama. I think Virginia Tech's in the mix. They're going to get him to trip, which is big. You look at Michael Griffin. That's another one that could be a little bit of a longer shot at linebacker. So those two guys. And then if you go to this VT Scoop homepage right now, CJO, that's what we're going to call him, because I don't want to mess up his last name. But that's one that if they eval and they think is good. Met with Brent Pry today, met with some of the assistant coaches, and they decide to trip him. I think that's someone they could sit really well with early. Heard he had a really nice showing at the Atlanta Under Armour camp. Yeah. That's linebacker. And then I know we have one more here from Iron talking about D-line. D-line board already having 2 commits. Who are our top targets and how many do you see us taking? So you're talking along, I almost said edge group with this, but I'm going to stick it on the interior. One, I obviously have a crystal ball in for and is on that first official visit weekend. I feel really good about Xavier Whittington, the former Boston College commit edge rusher. D lineman. I think Virginia Tech sits well there as one to keep an eye on. And then as well, kind of a hybrid swing guy in that defensive line room that I would follow on vtscoop.com for the next couple of days. But I feel very good about Virginia Tech and Xavier Perkins. One, I feel really good about. Going to visit again this weekend. So I would say those are a couple names to keep an eye on for sure. If you're just joining, subscribe to the show, like the video. Make sure to watch the replay if you missed Brock Frisbee live. I thought you gave some really insightful answers. Appreciate him jumping on as always. That's really awesome. So we'll jump into the live chat now. If you have questions, drop them in the live chat, and then we'll scoot on out of here. Got Tom G, my G, always in here asking questions. I really appreciate it. Tom G, 5304. Don't think, at least on paper, Virginia Tech has had the multiple quality quarterbacks it has now. Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, honestly, maybe I'll show how I'm not that big of a ball knower here. But I mean, Hendon Hooker, was he here with Josh Jackson and Willis and some of those guys? And then you look at Logan Thomas and Tyrod Taylor, and you look at Glennon and Tyrod Taylor. I mean, there were some decent – those are some pretty good quarterback rooms. So I would say they're in a really good spot right now. It's a lot more unproven than some of those names we just rattled off, though. But, yeah, certainly the depth is really high up there. Got Thomas Train. Yeah, that's what he just said. On paper, they did when Quincy Patterson, not Josh Jackson. Why did I say Josh? Quincy Patterson, Hendon Hooker, and Braxton Burmeister. So I mixed up some names there. But, yeah, it's been a long day, right? Got Hokie in VA with the question. Always appreciate you being in here. What's the latest on the recruits, Hughes and Adams? So you're talking about Tristan Hughes. This is one where agent certainly got involved. That's pretty clear from the outside. Changed the calculus a little bit. Was going to commit on, I forget, I guess last Thursday. I forget which day that was. And then he visits Penn State, but doesn't sound like he's a take at Penn State. And then he visits Kentucky. And there's definitely a lot of murkiness in the water. Didn't commit to Kentucky there. So I still like where Virginia Tech sits. There's just a lot of stuff to sort through. And now it's a whole different game because you said this, you went back in your word. There's just a lot with that. I think Virginia Tech still sits in a good spot. The waters did get a little bit more murky. Now, you're talking about Andre Adams, the Tennessee quarterback that a lot of schools are on. Funnily enough, also Kentucky, probably the largest competition there. He visited Colorado recently. But he's one that I think Virginia Tech, in their heart of hearts, feels like they can get or they sit well with. But I think if you've been following, Virginia Tech is probably sitting waiting for their top choice, Peter Bork, who is being courted by Penn State. Was at Miami recently, but I think it's really Penn State, Georgia, two of those bigger teams to keep an eye on. That's their top guy, right? That's their top of the board guy. So until they really pivot off him, they kind of haven't put their foot on the gas for Andre Adams. So he pushes commitment back, which I'm not surprised by, trying to wait to see where some of these chips fall. So I wouldn't say that's a bad thing from Virginia Tech's perspective. I know I saw some people freaking out about that, but I wouldn't think that's a bad thing from that perspective. Got a ton of questions in the live chat. Appreciate it. Got VT Hokies 2022, another classic stud who always comments. Thank you guys to everyone who comments and hangs out every time. It really does mean the world. We were better, talking about Virginia Tech was better at run blocking than pass blocking because Virginia Tech had to move guys around due to injuries, and it's easier Yeah, I think definitely, the way it's a lot easier, first off, to, get downhill. That's why you always hear offensive linemen saying, run the dang ball. Like, you just want to get downhill, kind of simplifies things a little bit. And now that's oversimplifying things, but definitely kind of gives them an opportunity to go be nasty and ground pound. So I would just say it was a litany of factors as we got into Kyron Jones being a more natural runner, probably less attuned to step up in the pocket and create plays from the pocket once things broke down a little bit, as opposed to some of the guys they brought in. So it was a litany of factors, but I think overall the offensive line will be improved. How improved? I think that kind of is the hot air balloon for how far Virginia Tech can go this year. Got VT Hokies saying, based on practices, what type of tight end sets we're going to run. I think you're going to see quite a litany of things. They've got a lot of dynamic athletes at tight end that can do a ton of different things. Luke Reynolds is just a Swiss Army knife offensive weapon. Benji can do a ton. They're motioning to Rickus. They're doing a ton. They're moving the guys all over. Don't want to step on too many toes here, but yeah, I think it's going to be very versatile. Got some funny questions in the live chat. This is the best place to be. You got to be in the live chat. Tom G talking about Brock Frisby. Yeah, man. Like I said, really thank him for coming on, taking the time here on this Tuesday night. Well spoken at 17. Happy to have him as a Hokie. Yeah, he's really, really awesome. So looking forward to him getting up for the spring game. VT Hokie's talking about Brock again. Shout out. Very well spoken. Could see him in broadcasting. Then the last question here in the live chat. As it stands, Wakanda Forever 32. Love the username. Where does Virginia Tech stand with defensive end Chris Whitehead from LC Bird? Yep, number one player in the state of Virginia. Someone that Virginia Tech is heavily courting, heavily pursuing. Someone they are very much in on. Competition, Ohio State, Tennessee, Alabama, every team you could imagine for top 40, top 50 player in the state or in the country. I think consensus top 25, top 30 guy. But I would not count out Virginia Tech. They're going to take a really big swing here. They're going to take a really big monetary swing. This is someone they're going to try to make a statement on. I still really like where Virginia Tech sits. They had that first official visit weekend. I would not rule them out. So that's one to watch there. But yeah, great live show. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Brock Frisbee for coming on the show. That was really, really fun. So another good one here on Tuesday. Everyone enjoy the Masters this week. Be kind to one another. Stay warm. Hopefully this warm weather continues throughout the week, and we can just keep it rolling right into the spring game and beyond. So thanks everyone for tuning in. It really does mean the world. Subscribe to the show, like the video, and go check out vtscoop.com. Use code Kolby, 60% off. I really do think it's a great deal if you love college football half as much as me. So sounds good. See you next time. Enjoy dinner. Peace out. God bless.